Yep.
Okay, good.
We're all good. The tradition now has become to test the mic by making the most disgusting noise you can imagine. So, hi everybody. I think that one works. Good.
And we're done. Can't top that. All right, well, we're going to get this thing started. Hello, everyone. I'm William, and I'm the publisher of Avatar Press. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, can we just break it for a second? William was out really late last night drinking with Garth Ennis, and he was actually drinking till about 6 in the morning, and he's really hungover, so can we all give a big, loud, "Hi, William!" Thank you.
See, what you don't understand is because he was out drinking with Garth, who's Irish, he actually had a liver transplant before he came to the con. So you should admire his dedication.
Oh, so true. So I'm here to talk to you a little bit about some of our fun new stuff we have coming up, and we have a whole slew of killer announcements for you. Let me introduce everybody on stage, and then you're going to hear more about their projects as we circle back around. So, at the end, of course, we have the legendary Max Brooks, who's doing Extinction Parade. Next to him is the killer Kanan White, who rocks Uber. Then we have Mike Costa, who is the co-writer of the huge sales hit, God is Dead. Then we have the smart-ass, but very talented, Simon Spurrier. Mike Wolfer, who's been with me since basically the beginning. And one of our other new ads, Justin Jordan. So we're just going to tuck right into the meat of all this. I'll go through the projects that we have coming up that the people aren't represented, so we can get them out of the way. We have, of course, Skin Trade is coming out right now. George Martin project that's doing very well for us, drawn by Mike Wolfer. We have another project with George coming up next summer. It's called In the House of the Worm, and it is a fantasy story. That'll be launching at San Diego next year. Always an amazing pleasure and honor to work with George. He's just gotten so huge so fast, and we're just thrilled that he still, has that little sliver of time to remember us small guys that knew him back when.
So when the book's not out, it's you.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, so now I get lynched for George not finishing his book. With Garth, we have a whole bunch of stuff, including a hangover. We just recently announced for December Rover Red Charlie, which we actually have a graphic of at our booth. And that is the story of 3 best friends at the end of the world, and the 3 best friends are dogs. Yep, it's also with Garth, we have the 3rd series of Dicks coming up with John McCrae, the humor book that really sells poorly, but we laugh a lot when we're doing it. Then also with Garth, we have the first of our brand new line of science fiction books we're doing. And Garth is doing a series called Caliban with artist Facundo Percio, who just did Fashion Beast with Eleanor. And Garth is kicking off our new group of science fiction stuff that is science fiction done Avatar style. I mean, it's not, weird fairies in space.
Although I would enjoy that.
Yeah, now Sai's got an idea.
Can we do fairies in space?
No, we could do sharks in space, though. Yeah.
I already did sharks in space.
So, Garth's Caliban will be spring, and that'll kick off our line. And I say line, it's not like there's going to be some sort of big weird brand thing. I mean, they're all still Avatar books, but we've wanted to do more science fiction for a while, and it just dovetailed nicely when a bunch of the guys had great ideas. So we're gonna bring science fiction back. Kieran, who is not here because he's off doing Avengers Wankery, I guess, will be joining us later on, and he's got the second science fiction book for us called Mercury Heat, and it is about cops on Mercury. Artist on that is Gabriel Andrade, who's currently drawing Ferals. Our third up in that line for coming out in the summer is going to be Simon Spurrier on a book called Neurotrash. And then rounding out fourth quarter is Justin Jordan with his first book for us called Redshift.
I think we have a Mr. Kieran Gillen entering the arena.
And we have Kieran Gillen. Let's hear it for Kieran Gillen. So yeah, Kieran, I just announced Mercury Heat coming up. So yeah, so you'll talk about that in a second. Other stuff these folks are doing is we're announcing here the relaunch of Gravel Combat Magician, written by Mike Wolfer. Yeah, of course, Gravel's been with us for forever, and we're thrilled to bring the Grumpy Bastard back. We've got, of course, a bunch of great new crossed arcs coming up. Represent. Right now, David Hines got an arc going. We just wrapped a new arc from Cy Spurrier up. We have coming up in, March will be Garth Ennis's return. And he's doing a new 7-issue arc in Crossed, which goes back to the beginning and gives us Patient Zero. Yeah, and it really is all that good. Yeah. Then right after Garth's arc is an arc from Justin Jordan.
So no pressure.
Yeah, exactly. But Cross continues to be the beast that it is. We have, literally plans for, I could tell you, what's going to be in issue 120 right now. So it's rocking, and it's going to keep on rocking. Also, God is Dead has been a huge hit for us, and Jonathan Hickman, rocks the house. He and Mike Costa nailed that one, knocked it out of the park, and Mike and I have been talking and decided, this is just too good to stop. So God is Dead is going to continue after issue 6. It's no longer a miniseries, it's an ongoing. And because we're really insane, it's an ongoing that the next arc is so big, we're going to do it twice a month, and it'll be bi-weekly for the next arc. Yeah. So,
That was William's idea. That was his idea. I didn't say, I want to write a bi-monthly book. He said, you have to. So.
it's royal we. So we're going to let everybody talk a little bit about some of the upcoming stuff they're doing. So I guess I forgot, one other project we have coming up end of the year. Every so often, you have that thing on the horizon that you just know is going to change the game, and it's coming from Alan Moore, and it's called Providence. And Alan is working with Jason Burrows. It really is fucking amazing. It's just beautiful stuff from Jason. Alan is bringing his A game. Really long development time. Because Alan is doing everything in the book. He's got, as well as all of the story pages, it's chock full of back matter and journals from characters that appear in the book, and he's really just making it as immersive an experience as possible. So it's a ways off. It's like a year from now when we launch, but boy, it's going to be worth the wait. So let's have these guys talk a little bit about the upcoming stuff. So we'll just start again. Justin, so we got Cross coming up, and then Redshift.
Yes. The crossed arc that I'm doing, can you guys hear me? Okay. Crossed arc that I'm doing is kind of focusing around, it's set in Pennsylvania where I'm from, which is, pretty much the crossed apocalypse already, so it's not a huge change when that happens. But it's kind of about what it takes to survive in that world, and whether or not people that are capable of surviving long term in the world of the crossed aren't any better than the crossed themselves. It's kind of the overarching thing of that. Redshift is about kind of the biggest bastard on Earth decides to become a bounty hunter in space. So it will be lots of violence. It gives me an opportunity to explore some sci-fi stuff that I haven't as yet had an idea of how to do that. Like, one thing we want to do is the concept of like celebra soldiers, which are people that are basically mercenaries who film their stuff and make their money that way. So they want the most glorious wars possible, so they're not really useful for actually winning a war, but they're good for money. So things like that, and the main character of that has a really loose definition of dead or alive when he brings in his bounty. So I'm really excited about that. I wanted to do a big immersive kind of sci-fi book for a while, and thankfully Avatar has given me a home. So
Yes, sir. All right, so Mike, we're bringing back gravel.
Yeah. You guys familiar with gravel? Anybody? Anyone? Okay, so gravel has been around since 1999. It started out with a miniseries called Strange Kiss, which totally revolted everyone.
Back in the days when we could still shock.
Yeah. Of course, it was created by Warren Ellis, and over the course of 6 miniseries and then another full-color 21-issue series, the shifts in writing came onto my shoulders. So Warren has always supplied plots and has steered the course of the project, but I've taken over as writer. Originally, I was an artist. So this new series launches in January, Gravel Combat Magician. It's ongoing monthly, full color, of course. And what we're doing, we're exploring Gravel's military ties. The previous 21-issue series was looking at the occult world behind Gravel. What is that magic? Where does it come from? What is the hierarchy of magic in the UK? So now that we know that part, we catch up with Gravel's military service. He's been AWOL for, I'm not sure exactly how long, but while he was dealing with all his magic problems, the military's been looking for him. So they have caught up to him, and now with the new series, there's going to be a lot of guns, there's going to be a lot of magic, a lot of guts, a lot of blood, a little smoking, some drinking. It's typical Warren Ellis, not written by Warren Ellis. I'm following Warren's lead. He has approved 18 issues worth of plots that I've written. So we're on the same page, and we're just like ready to come out, guns blazing. So
Yeah.
First issue is a 0 issue, by the way, not issue 1. Issue 0 is kind of a standalone story that brings everybody up to date, and it's also, I've written it so that it's an absolute starting point. If you've never read Gravel before, you're good. There's also going to be 18 pages.
Yeah.
18 pages of supplementary material in the back that does recap everything that we've seen so far. And I'll tell you now, if you're a Gravel fan, you need to read that back material because there's going to be a lot of little clues in there of what's going to be coming up. So that's very exciting. I can't wait to get back to it.
So, next we have Cy Spurrier, who has been killing it on Crossed. Wish you were here. We've got a couple exciting things from him. We're going to be starting end of this month, Disenchanted, which is an all-new webcomic written by him. We are once again have the brilliant business model of paying people and then giving it all away for free. So, Disenchanted will be once a week, every Monday. We have a metric ton of it already done. We literally have 400 pages of it already drawn, colored, done and dusted. Yeah. So we're way ahead. So yeah, I went a little overboard with the deadlines are just so killer on the weekly stuff. I'm like, I want to make sure we have plenty of padding, and I think after about a year and a half, Cy gently taps me on the shoulder. He's like, "It's enough. We can just put it out now. Are you sure?" So. So we're starting at Disenchanted, and we have, for this Halloween, in comic stores all across the country, we're doing the first chapter, a free, it's like free comic day on Halloween, and you can go in your shops and you can get Disenchanted, the first chapter, for free.
pretty much.
Yeah. So we're really doing the insanely back-asswards method of using print that we're paying for to promote a webcomic we're giving away, and so there's just no money to be made here at all, and frankly, I'm insane. And then Sci is also doing one of the science fiction books, Neurotrash. So, Sci, why don't you talk a little bit about Disenchanted and Neurotrash?
All right. So yes, Disenchanted, as William says, we've got a metric ton of this material ready to go. This has been in development for like 4 years, right? It's the first thing I ever started doing for you, and the rest of it's kind of come along and taken over. Disenchanted is, hilariously enough, given what we were talking about just now, it really is about fairies. But it's kind of, I mean, fairies are crap, right? Aren't they? Fairies are twee, and we think of them as twinkly, little, sparkly bullshit. No, none of that. So, you look into folklore at all, you know anything about folklore, you know that all the little people of myth, you know, the goblins and the leprechauns and the fairies and the brownies and the boggarts and the piskies and the kobolds and all these funny little things, they're all actually kind of unpleasant when you look at it closely, and it generally comes down to sex and magic and blood. Disenchanted is about all these guys, all these little things. Nobody believes in them anymore. And so they don't really believe in themselves anymore either. And like so many dispossessed people in the real world, when they start to feel disenfranchised and disenchanted, hey, that's clever of me because I used that as the title. When they start to feel disenchanted, they move into cities. And this is the story of a city full of 1-inch tall beings in an abandoned London Underground station. And it's, who's seen that movie, The Borrowers? Right? I mean, that's another crap movie. I keep giving these references, which are bollocks, but this is The Borrowers meets The Wire. It's gangs, and it's drugs, and it's cops, and it's interracial hatred, and...
I mean, it's still an Avatar project, guys. So
yeah,
he's making it sound shit, sort of, but no. It's...
yeah, I'll put my heart and soul into this. I'm very proud of it. It's enormous. And can we talk about what's going on the website?
Yeah.
So, as William says, this is a thing that's going to be given away every Monday, 12 pages or 6 pages, depending on how you look at it, completely free. Because we're essentially creating this world from the ground upwards, one thing we've done is to create a map of the city. So what?
To scale for 1 million inhabitants.
1 million inhabitants. So when the artist drew the original of this, if you laid it out, it's like probably as big as this room.
But it's huge. Yeah,
it's enormous. And so the idea is that you can visit the website, you can read the comic, you can scroll across this map and just keep scrolling and keep scrolling. And every building is a soda can or a cereal box or a milk carton or whatever. Just endless.
It's all drawn, yeah.
It is mind-blowing. So look out for that. So that's Disenchanted. That's very exciting. I'm going to stop waffling in a moment. Neurotrash is the sci-fi book. Can't say a huge amount about it because I haven't started writing the thing yet. But
it does have the job.
Yeah, the basic idea behind Neurotrash is that it's about a future in which being young is considered disgusting. So it's about a gang of kids in a sort of future version of Europe. Europe has become one vast conglomerated city, very baroque, very gothic. America's gone. America's been wiped out. The only Americans that are left are kind of diaspora immigrants who live in giant moving house cars, kind of very, what's the word, Art Deco. And it's about a bunch of kids who, they're kind of criminal. They found a way to break into these incredibly fast, constantly moving house cars. It's mental, it's awesome, and it's crazy, and it's about drugs and living ideas and people with jetpacks and yeah. In fact,
no fairies at all.
No fairies, no space sharks, unfortunately. But yeah, the log line is junkies with jetpacks. So stick that in your pipe and smoke it. So, all right, I'm shutting up. I'm sorry, everybody. I went on.
No. So yeah, Disenchanted will actually launch the last Monday of this month. And yeah, 28th, yeah. And then the free, that Wednesday, the 30th, is when...
Last thing, these jobbies, if you want to come and get one of these at the end of the panel, come and say hi.
Yeah, swing by the booth, we've got everything, of course. All right, so then Mike Costa is a new addition to the Avatar family. And he's been doing great stuff on God is Dead. I have officially scared him and freaked him out by offering him shitloads more God is Dead, and at a breakneck pace. But it's Yeah, it's how do you take a concept that big and that scope, and then how do you make it bigger? So, Mike, take it away.
I don't know how many of you guys have read the first 2 issues, but essentially the premise is that a lot of gods from antiquity, the Roman pantheon, the Aztec gods, the Egyptian gods have sort of returned to Earth and decided to divvy it up between all of them, and then began systematically slaughtering the human population of people who are unbelievers. But then, I believe at the end of the most recent issue, they sort of, the Norse gods sort of turn on them and start, wanting to conquest the Earth for themselves. So you have a bunch of different factions. There's a faction of scientists who are trying to figure out what happened and how to stop it from happening, and then there's the American military, which is trying to launch attacks against these gods. So it's sort of a big mess. With issue 6, that's sort of the final issue of what is now the first arc. Yeah. And we're sort of looking at this current arc as, like, say, the creation myth of this God is dead world. So the next arc, I can't talk so much about it because it'll obviously give away what happens at the end of issue 6. But
much explodo.
What's that?
Much explodo.
Much exploding. Yeah. As bad as things are in the first 6 issues, we then set everything else on fire. As much destruction as there is by the end of issue 6, things get a lot worse in issue 7. It's called Armageddon.
Armageddon.
It's actually called Armageddon. So that's all I can really say about that until issue 6 comes out. But thanks for your support.
Yeah, no. All right, so next up we have the humongous hit for us, Uber. And so we have Team Uber. We have our artist, Keenan White. And we have the incomparable Kieran Gillen, who finally joined us. So yeah, they're going to talk a little bit about Uber, and Kieran's also going to talk some about Mercury Heat, his new science fiction book. So why don't you talk about Mercury Heat first, get that out of the way, and then you guys talk Uber.
Mercury, an interesting little planet for like this incredibly ball near the sun. The thing about Mercury, like the hot side, everyone knows it's hot. It melts lead. And the cold side actually liquefies oxygen. It's a really big divide between the two. The thing about Mercury is it turns very slowly. It takes 88 days to rotate, so its day is 88 days long, essentially. Of course, the planet is small and it turns slowly, about 11 kilometers an hour. That kind of means you can outrun Dawn on Mercury. And that's kind of where we start Mercury Heat. We've got somebody who's been dropped there, is trying to outrun the Dawn, and inevitably failing, because eventually you get tired. And that's the murder we're basically looking into. It's basically a cop show set in a science fiction future on Mercury. And that's, like I said, that is the murder. That's kind of using the kind of hard science fiction of the setting, lots of playing games, and drop this, frankly, kick-ass heroine into it, Louisa, who spent her entire life wanting to be a cop, but she has certain psychological issues that means she can no longer do it on Earth. Unfortunately, whilst Earth is kind of a utopia in this future, Mercury is basically where their utopia is paid for. It's basically the energy, the entire planet.
It's like Australia in the future.
Yeah, it's basically the energy sink. There's an enormous ring around the centre of solar panels, and the energy is exported back to Earth. This is kind of what the point of the place. It's also a bit of the Wild West. So in other words, you need people like Louisa who have less problems with violence, shall we say, to sort it out. And that's kind of the vibe. It's a mixture of me playing world building and science fiction with sort of extreme content in the Avatar mode, and kind of my love songs, my old 2000 AD comics as a kid. There's a little bit of a Judge Dredd influence in there. It's that kind of like broad satire, but at the same time, emotional realism and handguns. So it's going to be fun.
So that'll be Mercury Heat. That'll be coming out late spring. So yeah, let's hear a little bit about Uber. What's as much as we can talk about what's going on with Uber.
Wow, yeah, we're doing a panel later as well.
I know. So we're just going to.
I was going to plug the panel.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, okay. Fair enough.
What's the time? Is it?
It's right after this.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Anyway, right after this, please follow me over there for Uber. So I'm going to be running elsewhere because I'm hilariously busy. Hilariously crappy.
Yeah.
Shall we say.
So anyway, Uber.
Anyway, Uber
I know
is a
it
more
continues.
incredibly dark alternate history World War II comic. You know, and if anyone has read it, the basic idea is at the end of World War II, Nazi, literally with Hitler with a gun through his head, Nazis, a secret weapon program of superhumans is involved, and that basically leads to a third act of World War II. You know, there's been a lot of World War II comics with superheroes before, and our thing is very much, we try to treat it as a history, is much more interested in what we can use superheroes to say about World War II than just using World War II as a setting. You know, it's ridiculously over historically researched, and it's all about, the horrors of war is one of those phrases everyone uses, but it's about that. And, you know, and I don't think in a world where we kind of gain kind of distant from World War II, kind of the point is to try to enliven it and remind people why this was the defining event of the 20th century. In terms of what we're doing next, I mean, we're in the middle, the first arc was mainly about Europe, and we've gone in the second arc off to the Pacific Theatre in Okinawa, so we're sort of exploring that and how the appearance of superheroes appears. Then we're off back to the Eastern Front, where we're going to talk a bit about what the Soviets are doing in response to it, and the Second Battle of Kursk, I'm going to say. Actually, I'm going to mention that. And then there is another arc, which is on the Western Front, which I don't want to talk about at all. And then kind of, which leads towards the end of the first year of the book, which is cataclysmic. You know, I didn't even, Caden doesn't actually read the scripts until he's drawing them. So I just don't want to tell him what happens, because his draw's going to drop. You know.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing. I don't. When I'm drawing it, I want to capture the wild moments. So if you've read, I think issue 5, which is like this big crescendo. If you haven't read it, check it out. There's this moment in there, man, where it's just like, oh snap, he did that. You can do that, you know. So she, you know, of course, you know their powers are like these distortion orbs, and so the key is you really don't know how powerful they really are. So they just kind of do different things, and you're just kind of like, oh, they can do that too. Like she creates this bridge, and then some other things, but the things that she does to this one particular character is just mind-blowing. I mean, she basically recreates him, and you if you haven't read, anybody read it yet? Has anybody read it? Okay, nobody. Okay, I won't spoil it.
Let's not spoil it.
Yeah.
It's definitely worth saying.
No, but I mean, it's really by the end of Uber, whenever that is, the world's gonna look totally different. All I say is kind of like you plug in it could be the Uberverse.
Yeah.
You know, Avatar's superhero verse. You know, kind of the boot of it, the kickstart of it all. But I mean, it really has the potential of becoming that. I mean, you know, the system in which they use to create these super beings is not limited, and they're just, it's like I said, it's an arms race. You know, everybody's trying to come up with the most powerful, the biggest, the baddest, the strongest, and it just gets stronger and stronger, and the carnage keeps going and going. So definitely stay tuned. We're just scratching the surface.
I mean, the thing is, like, you know, Uber, it's planned. You know, I've got this infamous 25,000 word Bible describing what happens and all the major conflicts. You know, I could sit down and just tell you about my battle from now until the end of the war. You know, it's a big kind of planned system.
Yeah, there's 60 issues mapped out.
Yeah,
and we're 60. We're going for the full ride. You know, they're both aboard for 60 issues. So
it's
5 years, baby.
It's definitely as long as it needs to be, if you know what I mean. As we were exploring, there's definitely stuff I'm discovering on the way. But yeah, that sounds the right method to me. Yeah.
So then, Kanan has also been blessed with working with Max Brooks on a project. So we're almost Max. We're almost there, buddy. Let's have you talk a little bit about that. They were doing a graphic novel together. So Max, why don't you introduce the graphic novel a little bit, and then Kanan can talk about drawing that.
Okay. First, I'd like to compliment William. You know, I don't know if you guys know this, but Avatar's broken the most amazing racial boundaries and hired English people. So I applaud William for taking a stand for what's right. You know, yes, we can. One world. Kanan and I, for years, have been working on a project which has nothing to do with science fiction. It's actually based on a true story, and it's called the Harlem Hellfighters. In the First World War, there was a unit of American soldiers that the United States government set up to fail. They did not want them getting into combat. They did not want them coming home as heroes. So they did everything possible to sabotage their own soldiers because they were black. Now, at the same time, the French army, which had been essentially bled to death almost, said, well, we'll take anybody. We can take anybody that can carry a rifle. The French had also had a lot of luck with their African soldiers, so they figured in their reverse positive racism, maybe all black people can fight well. So they said, oh my God, a unit of black soldiers, we love them, we'll take them. This unit fought with the French and came home to a hero's welcome as one of the most decorated units in the United States Army in the Great War. And this is a graphic novel coming out in April, and the artwork from Kanan is just, it's unbelievable. And his ability to get sort of historical accuracy was just phenomenal. So I'm really looking forward to that.
So yeah, so Kanan has now drawn books in World War I and World War II. Yeah.
And I will be doing I will be working for Uber. I'm going to be creating the Italian superhero, who his superpower is to change size. And he does that pretty much every 24 to 36 hours.
Wow. No, I mean, Max is right. I mean, lots of research. This was a learning experience for me. You know, being a African American. I mean, I didn't know, and sadly, you probably never will really know a lot of the story about Black history. It's more than slavery. That's part of it. Like I teach my children, we're inventors, we're poets. We fought, we bled. There was a black individual that was real close to George Washington, one of his right-hand men. There was a spy. She was a black woman. She one of the first black billionaires was a woman. She created hair products. So I mean, we've done amazing things. And so to hear the story of the Harlem Hellfighters, how they gave their lives, it's not surprising, but then it is, because they gave so much. Like there's one character by the name of Henry Johnson. You can find it online. There's a poster of him. He was the first person to receive the coup de grace, and that's like the Purple Heart, for a soldier, but the first soldier, period, to receive.
Black or white.
Yeah, black or white. Yeah. So I mean, he fought off like 20 soldiers with a bowie knife, with a bolo knife, it was amazing. So I mean that, they fought so hard and so well, they pushed Germany back, across the border, and they were I believe the first to actually successfully do that.
There was a point when the Germans launched their all-out attack on Paris in 1918, and in this sector there was nothing between the Germans and Paris but these guys, and they stopped them, and then they pushed them back, and they became the first Americans, black or white, to reach the Rhine River.
Yeah, so I mean, there's countless other Tuskegee Airmen. They shot down more planes than any other soldier, but they never gave them a chance, and they always had to prove themselves. But when they did, it was always above and beyond. And it's the heart of anybody. You want to defend your country, and a lot of times people don't want to serve and enlist now. I don't want to be in the army. But these guys, I just got to prove to them that I can do it. And this story it just inspired me. So it's like, man, here I am, up here, doing what I love, and I'm a black, individual, and I'm working with amazing writers, artists. I mean, they've been like family. So yeah, definitely check it out, man. You'll be inspired and motivated.
So we've also got currently running with Max the humongously giant project that keeps on growing, and that is. That Extinction Parade. Max has had a little bit of experience doing zombie stuff. You might, a few people have seen his things. And yeah, Extinction Parade is the zombie outbreak from the point of view of vampires. And they don't fucking sparkle. So, Max, what's your about Extinction Parade?
Well, I had done so much work with zombies, more than zombies, I had done so much work with how humans would react to zombies, not just as an individual, but as a nation, as a world. And I thought, what about another species? What about a whole other species with a whole other set of rules, a whole other history, a whole other biology? And I thought, vampires, to me, are a perfect metaphor for privilege. They're a perfect metaphor for the aristocracy, because they are at the top of the food chain. You look at this room, you look at all the things we've created, the fact that my voice carries forward like thunder, all these inventions are directly because we as humans are in the middle of the food chain. Right? We're not supposed to be the dominant species on the planet. We're supposed to be saber-toothed cat food. That's really what we're meant to be. And all these creations we've invented, not just technological, but organizational, have come from compensating for our weaknesses. And you see that in individuals. How many people do you know that are pro athletes that were like the sickly kid, or like someone who's really successful in business wasn't attractive and couldn't get the girl. So many of us are successful because we're compensating for weaknesses early in our development. And it's the same thing with the human race. But I thought, what about a species that had all these amazing physical gifts, the speed, the agility, the strength, the immortality? Well, everybody I know growing up always worshipped vampires for that. But when I looked at them, my thought was, get a job. Because to me, I saw the Hilton sisters, I saw the Kardashians, I saw aristocrats, people who just they never had to struggle, they never had to adapt, they never had to get out of their comfort zones. And I thought, this is the most vulnerable species I can think of. Because what if you had this group that thought, yeah, we are apex predators, and we're above the humans. And then suddenly another, even subspecies, was eating the humans out from under them. And suddenly their one food source was threatened. How would they survive? Could they survive? Could they adapt? And that's the nexus of Extinction Parade. So we're following, it takes place in Malaysia, because I wanted to do a country that had rapid economic growth. Malaysia within 50 years went from a third world, former British colony, to an economic superpower. No thanks to you. But I wanted the vampire, and that was important, because as immortals, they don't do well with change. They have all the time in the world. They don't have to pay attention to the ticking clock. The ticking clock is their friend, not their enemy. To we as humans, we're born knowing we're going to die, so it's like, we better make every moment count. Not vampires. They just wake up one moment and they're like, wait, when did the Malaysian jungle suddenly become this massive metropolis? And also, when did they invent the middle class? When did citizens suddenly have worth? We used to be able to kill whoever we wanted. Now everyone has a social security card and a job and a boss who's going to be calling. And they don't like that. And then suddenly when the zombie outbreak happens, they love it. Because suddenly human civilization starts to break down. It's like Mardi Gras. Uh-oh, the good old days are back. It's like the fall of Rome. We can kill anybody. Yes! This is awesome! And then eventually they have an inconvenient truth, where they realize, wait a minute, this isn't about the end of human civilization. This is about the end of humanity. And so what I have tried to do in every issue, it's 12 issues, I have tried to have sort of a moment of revelation for these vampires in every issue, where they realize something about themselves. Because when you are spoiled and arrogant, you don't look inside. You don't have to look inside, because everything's working for you. And suddenly, when they're backed against the wall, they have to realize these things about themselves, about their species, they never thought of. Oh my God, we've never adapted, we've never organized. They never even loved. Because in their mind, love is just a psycho-emotional justification for sex, which they don't have. This is one thing I never understood about vampires and sexuality. Vampires reproduce by biting, not by, And therefore, if they don't do this, then the organs the gland that would drive them to do that, because let's think about it, sex is pretty gross. And if you didn't have the urge, you'd be like, oh my God. To you, sex would look like a Garth Ennis comic.
Zing!
And if you didn't have that urge, and if it dried up, you wouldn't have a sex drive. So if you didn't have a sex drive, you wouldn't have the justification for love. That's their attitude. So they're just a bunch of narcissistic individuals. And I really thought that was important, because me growing up, I grew up around a bunch of kids who were very spoiled. And as I got older, unfortunately, I saw that notion of being spoiled has translated to a lot of young Americans now. And when I say spoiled, I don't mean money. I mean emotionally. I mean, there's a whole generation of millennials now who are so coddled by their parents that they just expect the world to just fall into their laps. I mean, now that I'm in my 40s, my friends who are employers cannot deal with their 20-something employees, because their 20-something employees cannot take criticism. They can't be sent back to do the work again. I have friends who are professors whose parents call up and say, like, well, my kid deserves a better grade. I know 20-somethings whose parents go with them to job interviews. They literally cannot struggle. They don't know that struggle is what makes you who you are. And that's what I put into these vampires, that suddenly they are confronted with having to struggle. And the humans that they've always looked down on, they realized, oh, the humans have something that we have given away. We've thrown it away. Because when we threw away our humanity, when we threw away our weakness, we threw away that survival mechanism that made the humans what they are. Can we get that survival mechanism back? Because, once again, the ticking clock is now our enemy. and that's Extinction Parade.
So, Extinction Parade 3 just came out this week. We have it here at the stand.
Yeah, three deals with the caretaker class, because that was one thing I thought Bram Stoker did great in Dracula, which was he created Renfield. Because let's be honest, like, Dracula doesn't have a day job. It's during the day. Like, do you guys see Underworld? Like, remember that great scene in Underworld where the vampires drive to the castle and there's all, like, the goths just sitting around? Now, I look at this mansion and my thought was, who pays the property taxes on this? So you need a servant class, and that's what issue 3 deals with.
Yep. It's a bi-monthly series. Art by Raulo Caceres, which is absolutely breathtaking, but he's not lightning fast. And also,
but the fault is mine. Let me apologize, because it's bi-monthly because I just keep writing, and I don't try to pay attention to deadlines. I have to say what I have to say, and I have to say it in the time that I do. And unfortunately, you guys pay the price for that because we just can't get it out every month. Because, you know, a comic book issue is supposed to be 22 pages, and they end up being, 26, 28, 30, but it's got to be said, and so I do apologize for that.
and every other writer up here, the fact that he ignores deadlines, that's Max. Okay, that's Max motherfucking Brooks. So all the rest of y'all, your deadlines count.
Yeah.
Sorry, switch to boss mode momentarily. So let's throw the floor open to some questions for a little bit here. See if anybody's got anything they want to find out more about. Anybody? And just throw your hands in the air if you got something. Yeah. Hi.